The Dolphins fell to 0-2 on Sunday, and we've checked the tape on the offensive side of the ball to talk about who were problems and who can be solutions.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today on the show, we have an abbreviated week because we have the game on Thursday, right? Thursday, we have crossover Thursday with Locked On Bills. Wednesday, we're going to kind of set the stage for the roadmap to the game against Buffalo and what the matchups are and what that's going to look like before the final prep with the crossover with Joe Marino. Tuesday is going to be the defensive side of the ball of this variation. Today is the offensive side of the ball, the film review. So no group therapy session this week. We had the post game yesterday on Sunday after the game, right into the game tape that came out this morning. And the objective of problems and solutions is not an invitation to talk about how Stephen Ross needs to fire the team. I'm looking at players on the team and what their performance week in and week out. To boil it down to one simple question for every player on the roster. Are you a part of the problems in that week's performance, or are you a part of potential solutions? And you objectively take at the end of the year how many times every player fell into the solutions or problems bucket, and that gives you a pretty good idea of what this long-term scope as you undergo the attempt to build this roster back up. Obviously, you're in the midst of a youth movement. There's some transition that's already happened with this team. We don't really know what the future is going to look like, but we should have a really good idea of who's going to fall in which bucket as far as the players and their contributions on the field in net positive or negative ways. This does extend to the coaching staff, which is where we're going to start. And then we're going to get into the skill group, and that includes the quarterback, the running backs, the rest of the skill players. I don't think it needs to be said again after we exhausted the whole talking point after the game last night or yesterday afternoon. The offensive coaching really felt like it robbed you of your best opportunity to win that game beyond Devon Achane not stepping out of bounds, and then the defense getting a stop and not letting the Patriots get in game-winning kick field goal territory. The self-inflicted wounds are inexcusable. They're well documented. It's been a problem. Mike McDaniel took to the podium today and said he talked with his assistants today, and they figured it out. They figured a fix out. I don't know that I believe that because this has been an established problem for several years, but nevertheless, there appears to have been a catalyst of a conversation off of too many guys in the huddle, personnel, confusion on what personnel packages are in the game for the play calls, the timeliness of the play calls, the timeliness of your ability to get up out of the huddle because you got too many guys in, so you got to send somebody off, and then you got to huddle everybody back up, and then you got to get them back out, and then you got to get them lined up, and then you got to shift, and then you got to shift again, then you get a motion. You get the deal. It was not the reason why you lost this football game, but it was a significant contributor to why you lost the game. I think you can get to some of the game management stuff as well. You know, you think about the decision to defer to the second half. You dug yourself a 12-point hole. You ran 3 plays before like 11 seconds left in the first quarter. And you were down 12-0. It was not a part of the solution. Now, I will say you felt like some of the ways in which it was identified how the Patriots were playing you with their coverages to try to attack Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, You found ways to get those guys open, scheme those guys open for some opportunities. Now, the sustainability of what one of those big chunk plays was like, it's a different story. But nevertheless, the plays were made. Devon Achane, the Patriots were totally content if the Dolphins were going to put Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on opposite sides of the field. Wherever there was the passing strength, they were going to play soft, and they were going to box it, and they were going to try to play 4 defenders over 3 eligibles to that side. And then they were going to play 3 over 2 to the backside, and it would be Waddle's the isolated receiver as the X, and he's got a press corner over top of him, and then a safety that's playing over the top. And then if you release the back out, and that's the second eligible to that side, he'd have these one-on-one matchups with linebackers. And that's how Devon Achane ends up finishing this game with as many receiving yards as he does, because when they kept having to come back and try to find completions, they kept working that strategy from New England. And it's nice to have answers. And I certainly think throughout the course of the game yesterday, as far as what New England did based on certain formations and personnel distribution, as far as where they're lining up on the field, it was a much more coherent effort in that regard in week 2. Part of the solution, not with all the other stuff. I think you could look at some of the growth from attacking throws outside the numbers and attacking soft spaces and being prepared for what some of the coverage strategies the Patriots were implementing were including. I think it led to a healthier looking passing attack. Did you execute perfectly? No. Did you execute perfectly up front? Absolutely not. And that conversation in segment 3 is going to be a bloodbath today. Full transparency. I would say 60% of that line played poorly. Another 20% of that line played sufficiently. I thought one of those players played well. We'll get into that distribution as far as problems and solutions in the rest of this episode, in addition to getting into skill group, where we, of course, will start with Tua Tagovailoa. That's next. Make sure you guys stick with us. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football-backed Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on all the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, it's easy. It's my favorite way to follow along with football. This week's max discount is Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 1/2 of 1 passing yard. Add it to your combination of picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL, $50 in lineups if your first $5 lineup hits. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Tua Tagovailoa. I had to put this one on a spectrum, because I felt better after I watched the tape. Like the first possession, that weird interception that was called off or negated by offsetting penalties. The Dolphins have 2 receivers to Tua Tagovailoa's right. One of them's Tyreek Hill, he's in the slot. Malik Washington's outside. And they both run in-breakers. And Tua takes his drop, and he's reading that side of the field. And I don't know for sure, but I do know that Tyreek probably could have crossed face inside of the defender who was playing in the hook over top and trying to collision him. Instead, he went outside and around, and it forced the play to take a little bit longer. So Tua has to slide off of his spot as a result. But Tua is still seeing and feeling this space that's available, and he sees Tyreek Hill developing into this space, and he's running right across the middle of the field. And Tyreek's eyes are back, so he's seeing where the safeties are at. It's 2 high safeties. Middle of the field is open. He works his eyes back inside to Tua and continues to carry right across the middle of the field. And as the ball leaves Tua's hands, Tyreek spikes straight up the field as though he's playing with Patrick Mahomes, thinking that Tua was going to go up and over the top. And Tyreek completely surrenders the place in which he would have been in a position to probably catch the ball in stride, and it's intercepted. And I felt better about the decision that was made because you saw it on the TV copy, and you just saw Tua throw the ball with somebody kind of bearing down on him. And when the camera pans as the ball is thrown, it's a Patriots player catching the ball and nobody within the camera frame. So you're wondering what just happened. It made me feel better to watch the tape for that decision. In the grand scheme of play, especially when you're grading on the curve of how the protection was in this in particular game, the guards got killed, guys. The guards got slaughtered by Christian Barmore and Milton Williams. They whooped them. I respect the efficiency and the ability to find completions. But here's the thing. I would say in a vacuum, Tua played to my expectation of going into the game. I said Tua Tagovailoa is a better quarterback than what he showed in week 1 against the Colts. You can say whatever you want about the ceilings and the floors and the finances and the durability and the arm strength. You could all that. You could say whatever you want. He's a better quarterback than what he showed in week 1. And he played to that in week 2. Thought he played a sturdy game with the exception of 2 things. There were a few outside of structure opportunities in which the Dolphins got nothing. And some of that extends to some of the skill players that we're also going to talk about in this segment. But it also falls into everything's covered. The Patriots are running twist games up front. The tackles are spiking hard upfield. There's these wide, vast spaces and exit angles up the field that you can flush into, and it's just not on the menu. And when you're not asking the question, did Tua play well? Did Tua do the right thing here? Did he make a good decision with the ball? You're instead looking at how is the Dolphins' offense at times capped? And that's a part of the problems versus solutions conversation. And when we have, as we have always talked about with Tua Tagovailoa, he's a player who you're looking to utilize his strengths as force multipliers for the rest of the offense. And you are building kind of like an RPG, right? Like your custom character and your character's pathway, and a character in this analogy is the offense. You are selecting a very specific path to success. And anytime you have to stray from that path and recipe for success, life's going to be a lot harder for you. And that was in a few of the big moments down the field or down the stretch. That's what felt like it manifested. And the other part of this is the economic portion of it. I know Chris Sims, I know how everybody feels about Chris Sims, but Chris Sims this season has talked about the task of evaluating the $50 million a year quarterbacks, and Tua's in that club. And those quarterbacks in that stratosphere, you want to, in a game and in a day in which things simply haven't gone your way, you want the quarterback to be able to say, guys, hop on the back. I don't care how long it takes the play calls to get in. I don't care how disheveled the coaching is. I don't care how bad the blocking is at guard. I don't care how many times I can watch my guys standing around once they're not initially uncovered and I have to run out of bounds to avoid a negative play. We're winning the game. And that was the opportunity that Tua had with that play. And it's a shame he was this far off from having a potential game-winning drive in his belt, although Devon Achane did the work after the catch. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I hope we get a lot of those kinds of games because I want to see continuously. That was the thing they talked about in the offseason. Talked about the 4-minute, the 2-minute, third downs, the critical moments of games, being stable in that structure, being better in that area. And that's what you expect for a quarterback in that stratosphere. And this, unfortunately, did not meet the task. So I would put the coaching, I think the coaching was better, but as in the midst of an 0-2 start and the warts and where they showed up, I put the coaching in the problem bucket. And the same thing for Tua. Tua played substantially better. I could probably count on one hand the number of I felt were poor reps by Tua in the entire game. And he had a lot of volume throwing the football. Now, we hang the ball downfield on the 47-yard catch. Mike McDaniel explained on Monday he's maneuvering within the pocket, so he's not in rhythm. And that ball is therefore late. As a result, it can't get up and down the amount of time that it needs to for it to be caught in stride. There's quarterbacks that can do that exact thing and have the club in the bag to put that ball down there. And then the 2-minute sequence, the 2-2-minute sequences. I put the quarterback play, especially through the optics of what was needed to win a game when the defense and special teams played the way it did, and what Tua's contract dictates that he is as a player. It was not a part of the solution, and there's only two buckets that you could put this in. I thought Tua played objectively well, but they didn't have the plays in hand in the moments in which they needed it. And that's the glass ceiling we're pressed up against right now. As far as the rest of the skill group, Devon Achane, he's a solution. I want to give him ample credit. Even nickel pressure out of play action. I see it. I adjust. I get a piece of the nickel, and then I turn around and make myself available for Tua, who does a good job moving off of his spot and getting the ball to Devon to pick up 10-plus yards. That's the kind of rep in week one. Devon didn't see it. The nickel gets a free runner and smacks the quarterback. That's progress, in addition to, obviously, the yards from scrimmage elements for Devon and what he did with the ball in his hands. Oh, he's a part of the solution, Devon Achane was. Jeff Wilson didn't really see. Ollie Gordon got 1 carry for 8 yards. I think Ollie can be a solution, but I'd like to see more. Felt like there was one opportunity where he had a pass protection opportunity where he kind of felt like the center was going to take the mugged up linebacker, but then the center drops off to help Keon Smith because the guards needed all the help that they could get. And Ollie left a little too early, and you let a free runner, Spillane, come running right through the weak side A-gap, and it almost had a big hit on the quarterback as a result. Now, it didn't. You got a completion to Tyreek Hill on that play in question. I think both, not looking big picture here, but looking objectively at the contributions and the offense being better and continuing to be better in 2025. Tyreek Hill, solution. Jalen Waddle, solution. Malik Washington, solution. Nick Westbrook-Akine, solution. I thought this group had a strong day at the office. Obviously, Waddle goes for 60 plus, almost 70 yards on the touchdown. Tyreek gets 47 on one pop. I liked how they took some of the motions. They finally get a man indicator. They run a deep out to the field with him for a 13-yard completion. I like how we took him in jet motion at the snap and had him just kind of turn around and be the check down and had a bunch of open air and gets 13 yards in that regard. There's another catch for 22. There were chunk plays for Tyreek, and the ways in which they used him was mixing and matching and using him in different phases. And if this offense is going to continue to have life and score points in a way in which they need to save everybody's jobs from the top down, that's why they are holding on to hope with Tyreek Hill. But I thought he had a good performance. Malik Washington, I see a lot of Jarvis. He's not as big of a player. I see a lot of Jarvis Landry in his game, man. I'm a huge fan. The punt return in and of itself was a big win. He did have the illegal shift, but also it's the kind of shift that you don't really run anywhere else in the league. So I'm sympathetic to that kind of motion and the timing and the urgency of it relative to what everybody else does, right? He hasn't had a lot of volume in the passing game. Jarvis Landry was defined by 400 catches in 4 years. All he got was volume because there was no Tyreek Hill and there was no Jalen Waddle in that wide receiver room. But nevertheless, between the special teams contributions, the end around, the touch pass with him, I think you have a player who's emerging as a really nice role player. D. Eskridge, I'm indifferent on. Didn't get a lot of run. Now, he did have the special teams kick return issue where they had kind of the low squibbler and he struggled to handle it, and you had to start at the 13-yard line. If we're just going to take what you give us, it was not a part of the solution. So therefore, you'd put Eskridge in the problem, part of the problem for this week in week 2. We'll do the tight ends plus Alec Ingold in with the offensive line, just because that offensive line conversation will be a quick one. Not a quick one. We have lots of layers to get into, but it's pretty straightforward. There was only 5 guys that played. So we'll get into that group, the core of the offense next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all turn to funny places for advice, whether it's your barista, your barber, some stranger in the bathroom, but not everyone is the right one when it comes to real support. And that's why BetterHelp is here. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 10 years of experience, BetterHelp helps you find the right match, someone clinically trained and credentialed to guide you through all of life's challenges. It's flexible, too, so you can join sessions online, from home, on the go. It helps fit therapy into your busy schedule. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Find the one with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNFL. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. I do have to ask, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. You can use the limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN to get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. And you can make up to $300 a year from buying the gas you already need. It might sound too good to be true, but it is totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to take their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon or other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now. Use limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited time 25% bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offer may vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. So I did have fun. The one thing I did have fun with the content off of this game, we did look at every drop back in the passing game, and we did the film review for Touchdown Miami on Substack. And it gave you a pretty healthy look in that. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. Kind of the things that we're talking about here with like the film on display to kind of talk about. Start with the guards. I thought both of these guards gave you replacement level effort. I would venture to say the guard play in this game was probably on par with what your standard Robert Jones, Liam Eichenberg experience was at the guard play. And for Keon Smith, it's not a huge surprise. You know, they continue to cross-train him. It was the last play of the game was Milton Williams, the defensive tackle, turning the corner on him to help flatten. You really didn't have a great look at a completion beyond the sticks. New England played everything really soft. Miami to the Waddle Hill side called a concept called Buffalo in their playbook, which is 2 verticals. And then the third receiver, whether he's in the backfield or he's split out wide, Achane was in the slot and he kind of stemmed outside like he was going to run an outside route and then pivoted and ran like a shallow under at like 5 to 7 yards of depth. And remember, the Dolphins needed double-digit yards to get a first down. So didn't really have a chance. And even if you would have needed Achane to do something like he did against the Colts to get the first down. But that goes back to some of the play calling stuff. There were some times where it kind of felt like when you were running routes, you were really only calling a play just for that first look. And if it wasn't there, then the protection did not hold up to a standard that I would consider sustainable, particularly against Christian Barmore and Milton Williams at defensive tackle. Jonah Savaiinai had his hands full with Kairos Tonga, the nose tackle at times. Just felt like the hands were late as far as landing and creating and offsetting a stun to prevent penetration and bull rushes that took him right down the middle. Milton Williams took some really soft edges on him where Jonah tries to jump set and get on top of him early, but his feet kind of stop as he takes his jump set and the hands aren't on time. So now Milton's kind of shoulder to shoulder with him, and then he has to try to reignite his feet. It doesn't latch that way. So the guard play in this game in particular, and you understand it with Keon Smith. He's a guy who's playing as a flex player. It's kind of weird, though. Like, I consider Larry Borom was brought in to be the swing tackle, and I would say Larry was probably your third best offensive lineman on the line. He had the bad moment with the double swipe by Harold Landry to give up a sack off the edge. But that was not that was a complimentary rush for New England where they kind of collapsed the pocket. So there was nowhere to step up into in the pocket as well. But Larry missed the assignment. Absolutely. But you think about Larry Borom, and then you think about the decision to go with Keon Smith. You think about James Daniels and adding that. And you think about Jonah Savaiinai and what that's supposed to fulfill for you. All of these guys are brought in, and their perceived strength is their run blocking. Their perceived strength is their displacement ability. And yet Devon Achane finished this game with 11 carries, and Ollie Gordon had 1 for 8 yards. And I am sympathetic. You're down 12-0. The defense did not help you stay on script. I get it. But at the same time, the objectives of what the personnel moves felt like they were geared towards for the second straight week, we didn't see it. It didn't manifest. And this is being compounded by the right side of your offensive line is now backups. I would say the guards, both Jonah and Keon in this game, problems. I'd say Larry Borom was, if you look at him through the lens of being the swing tackle and not a preferred starter, I think he played sufficient game. Harold Landry got him once. There were a couple of the times where Tua had to step up into the pocket. I know Dolphins fans have adopted him as kind of they're one of their least favorite players. I thought he did a sufficient job, but it was really underscored by the guys inside. I thought Aaron Brewer gave you a sufficient effort. I thought some of the power of both Barmore and Milton Williams, they have a nice blend of power and twitch, and it put Brewer on the defensive a few more times than you typically expect to see. I thought Patrick Paul played a good game. So I put, of all of the offensive linemen, I would put Patrick Paul and Aaron Brewer in the solutions bucket, and everybody else off of this game and their ability to execute and protect and run an effective offense was not, in my opinion, part of the solutions for how that game was going to turn out better for you with how the performances went. Which leaves us with the tight ends. Darren Waller, everything you tried to move away from is being proven, and Andrew Rosenhaus, I guess, is already going on. Josh Moser's show saying Waller will not play on Thursday against the Bills. Okay. We're now 1 week away from, you guys should have just left him on the pup, and you wouldn't have had to burn an IR to return spot if you put him on IR, but now you want to put him on IR, but do you put him on IR and get a setback like the Wednesday before the week 1 game? I don't know. I will say this, though. I thought Julian Hill for being the blocker tight end, had himself a sturdy game. I think he's been non-visible the first 2 weeks, and I think a lot of that has been he's done a sturdy job. It's not spectacular. He should have got the ball on the interception that Tua tried to force to Malik Washington with the rat player in the hole, and then Malik's running across the middle on the crossing route, and he's got somebody in his hip pocket in the first place. Tua stepping up in that moment has Julian Hill off to his left. And if he is able to, even if he just kind of rainbow lobs it out there was nobody probably within 15 yards of Julian Hill. And he was past the line of scrimmage by about 2 yards. He needed 9. He had the sideline to work to and have a bunch of extra space if he needed it. If he'd have caught the ball, and he just caught a 2-point conversion last week against the Colts, they'd have got a first down instead of an interception on that play. So that was one of the missed opportunities from Tua in the game, in my opinion. And I think Julian Hill is fine. Do I think he's a bona fide starting tight end? No. But I thought his play was sufficient to what it was needed for his role as a non-primary receiving player and a predominant blocking tight end. You want to call that a solution? Go ahead and call it a solution. If you fundamentally disagree with calling that kind of role, and in particular Julian Hill, because of your priors with Julian Hill, don't want to put him in that bucket, I'm not going to argue with you. 2 + 2 = 5. That's fine. I don't care. But Tanner Conner, who I took some exceptions with last week, was a little bit more up and down. I appreciated the Devon Achane touchdown catch and run just before half. Conner ran a divide up the middle as the number 3. And he looked back and he saw that Achane had caught the ball and the ball was already out. And he made the conscious effort to sprint down to the goal line anyway because he carried that linebacker with him. And he created an extra 10, 12 yards of space for Achane to run and then get collision with that defender down on the goal line and eventually score. It was a smart football play in Tanner Conner in that moment. But these sacks, you took 2 of them where you're rolling out to your left and the scramble drill and nobody's uncovering for the quarterback. The first one, it's 3rd and 8. And Tua is rolling to his left and Tanner Conner is running a delayed release with a chip out into the flat. And he kind of trickles towards the sideline, and there's a flat defender that's triangulating the first down marker, the sideline, and Tanner Conner, and Tua as he's rolling out. And Tanner just kind of drifts to the sideline and holds at the line of scrimmage and allows that one defender to defend the run, the pass, and the sideline, and anything that was going to hit behind it. You'd love Tanner to flip and get upfield and run that player out of there. And if he doesn't go with you, then Tua can throw you the ball. But don't run sideways 1 yard downfield on 3rd and 8. That's going to do it for us here on the show. Definitive solutions from this game: Devon Achane, Patrick Paul, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Malik Washington, Julian Hill. I'd probably put Alec Ingold in that bucket, although we didn't get to see a ton of them. Are probably the players that performed at the level in which I think you really needed them to through all lenses. Even if players played better than they did last week or players played relatively well but didn't meet the moment, those would be the players that I would call out as solutions this week on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball tomorrow, you're on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us, Kyle Krabs. Appreciate you guys as always checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day.